Here comes tomorrow, shining with promise, bright, brave new worlds for you to explore. If you don't like it, just hang around, cause tomorrow's tomorrow will reset the score. You can fight to turn the tide, try to rewrite, or just take flight, but you can't change the simple fact that it's where all your hopes are hiding. Here comes tomorrow.
Hello, homos, sapiens, and superior alike. My name is Josephine Riesman.
And I'm Becca Petunia.
We are two trans women here to talk about non-binary writer Grant Morrison's Turn of the Millennium comics run with the X-Men and what it tells us about finding joy in a world that hates and fears us. In other words,
Here comes tomorrow.
I always think we're gonna do it faster, and then it slows down at the end. I don't know, but it sounds great.
What happens is I start saying it fast, and then it seems like you're slowing down, and I try to slow down because again, we could be like, and this is Here Comes Tomorrow.
Here comes tomorrow. Maybe we should just anyway. So here we are.
Can we sing the Monkees song? I know we couldn't license it.
I know we couldn't license the Monkees song, but I don't want to risk it. Let's just I'm just going to yell it. Here comes tomorrow. There we go. That's the name of the podcast. Today we are talking about some very exotic issues that take place in La Belle France.
I believe it's pronounced exotique.
Exotique. Okay. Well, I didn't study French ever. Can't even be one of those who's like, I studied it in high school. I'm pretty good at it. Oh, did you?
I studied it in high school, and it was my lowest AP score of my entire high school run. And if there was one thing I could never get right about French, it was speaking it. So,
well, that sets you apart from the new character we're introduced to in this little story arc. So, Becca, do you want to tell us a little bit about what we are discussing today?
Sure. So we're discussing 3 issues of Grant Morrison's new X-Men, specifically 128, 129, and 130. Check it out, Josie. I wrote it down beforehand, so I didn't have to pause the recording.
You nailed it.
These are, I guess we could call them the Weapon 12 storyline. New Worlds is the first issue, so maybe it's the New Worlds storyline. I'm not quite sure what to call it.
I would just think of it as the Fantomex storyline. It's the introduction, but keep going, yes.
Yeah. But anyway, these are written, of course, by Grant Morrison with art by Igor Kordy. Is it Igor or Igor? I'm not trying to joke.
Unfortunately, Young Frankenstein, the film, has ruined a generation for being able to pronounce that properly. I don't know.
I apologize, because let me tell you, the art's amazing on this.
The art is amazing. We don't want to diss Mr. Corday, but yeah.
Yeah. And in these issues, the world and Charles Xavier are sort of adjusting to the fact that Charles Xavier has gone on television and announced that he is a mutant.
While under the influence of Cassandra Nova, but now he's like, maybe that wasn't such a bad idea, you know?
Right. Which is the funny thing, and I shouldn't be getting ahead of myself, but people forget that in X-Men canon, it was not until this point that the general public knew that Charles Xavier was a mutant.
Right.
Everybody just thought he was a great ally. But anyway, listen, my 20s were like that. So because of this, Charles Xavier has created X-Corp offices throughout the world that handle international X-Men affairs that we've already kind of dealt with in The Man in Room X. But it feels like it's kind of being... Anyway, the European team is the team we know as X Factor from the Peter David X Factor book. And they report that there is an incident involving an explosion in the Channel.
Yes, the Channel. That nightmare Channel.
And Jean and Professor X are forced to help them investigate when it's revealed to be related to the Weapon Plus program, formerly called the Weapon X program. Jean and the professor also meet Fantomex, a mysterious thief who
Terrorist! They specifically say terrorist, which is interesting, given the period of time in which this was published. But keep going.
Correct. Yes. A mysterious terrorist thief who seems to be pulling all of the strings and seems to always be one step ahead of everybody else. The three of them go to help X Factor in the tunnel when it is revealed again that this is an attack from Weapon 12, an experiment from the Weapon Plus program that has the power to has a parasitic consciousness that he can push out into others. In the fray, our favorite character, who we all were so heartbroken that she died, a character we all know so well, and we all cried and cried and cried when we learned Dark Star had been killed.
One of my favorite Grateful Dead songs, and you don't take something like that lightly.
And, most importantly, in the process of defeating Weapon 12, Jean finds out that Fantomex is actually Weapon 13.
Yes.
I don't know. Was that a good summary? I'm sorry.
That was a great summary.
Great. Okay.
The only thing you missed was Professor X and Jean have some therapy sessions, and Jean sort of reveals that Jean isn't quite Jean anymore. Yeah.
You know who else has some therapy sessions? Our pals Cyclops and Emma Frost.
That's very true. We'll get into all of that. But
as Josie was saying before I cut her off, this is where it's revealed that Jean is maybe more fully the Phoenix than anybody thought previously.
Right. And before we go any further, I want to introduce our wonderful, very special guest who will help us discuss all of this, and that is Charlotte Fierro, co-host of My Marvelous Year and avid reader of many a comic book. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us today. We are looking forward to discussing these wonderful issues with you. How are you today?
Oh, hello! Thank you for having me here.
I didn't even have to ask. It's perfect. Thank you.
I know what the people want, and I'm happy to give it to them. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here about maybe the most well-known French character in Marvel Comics. And I think it says a lot that he's not actually French. I think, okay, the most well-known French-speaking character is Gambit.
Yes, but that's a complicated identity. You have like Batroc Zilipel, but he's,
right. I guess Batroc would be the most famous one. I think the most famous superhero who's like fully French is, what's his name? I used to know his name by heart. No, I think, maybe, I was thinking of like some kind of bird.
Obelisk.
Well,
yes.
Jean, what's his name from Alpha Flight, but that's Quebecois. I'm not sure how much that counts. Jean-Paul, yes.
Jean-Paul something. I can't remember what his last name is.
Yes.
Anywho, yeah, really happy to be talking about Fantomex today.
Well, we are happy to be talking about him with you. It, him, them. It's really wonderful that
oh no, geez, at this point it isn't even him because of Eva. We haven't even gotten into my favorite characters.
Right, the gender politics of Eva.
My favorite characters, the other clusters. We haven't gotten into Dark Fantomex, and it's still, I guess, they...
Let's say, I'm gonna use this iteration of Fantomex as a he, they. We can, my guess is Fantomex would be okay with a he or a they at this stage of that biological
Fantomex is one hell of a non-binary name. Like that's yeah, for sure. I definitely know some friends who considered calling themselves Fantomex.
Mix Fantomex would be a great name.
Ooh, Mix Fantomex. And as we all know, just so I can be the pretentious one here, this character's name is a reference to Fantomas, who was a very famous character from French pulp fiction, 100 years prior, and was also a thief and a wonderful exotic. Yeah, you can probably describe Fantomas better than I can.
So I never read the original Fantomas stuff from early 20th century.
Yeah, it's from the early 20th century. It's very old.
It's quite old. And I think it's one of the many prototypes of superhero-like characters.
Big time.
But also kind of like an Arsène Lupin type figure, right? Like the gentleman thief. The version of Fantomas I knew as a kid was I wouldn't even be able to tell you a year. It's like 70s, maybe, movies, which, by now are like older movies.
Right, but were an update on the original concept.
Which is 1964 is the Fantomex movie I watched, which has Louis de Funès, great comic actor, like one of my favorites growing up. And it's a version of Fantomex that is much more like tech savvy, which isn't at all part of the original character. And he's kind of like Chameleon from Spider-Man. He has like a mask, and we never see his face. He has like that weird gray mask and always wears different faces.
Right.
Which I think is partly part of the original Fantomex, but all the technological aspect of it isn't. And I also think, from what I've read, Fantomex is visually inspired by Diabolique.
Danger Diabolique, yes, exactly.
Diabolique, yeah, which is an Italian character, who was himself inspired by Fantomex. So we have like a bit of both in Fantomex.
But yeah, like the eye, the cutout of the eyes is very much like Danger Diabolique, which was this very famous Italian pulp movie of, I think the 60s. I feel like a moron, but it's either 60s or 70s.
Yeah, and like a cartoon and everything.
Yeah. It was a big deal. But so yeah, this character is Grant Morrison in some ways showing off that they actually like know culture and not just comic books, which is always something fun. But I guess
it also just feels like, and we should get into other but like it also just feels like, it doesn't just feel like Grant Morrison bragging about references, because it feels like...
Because no one gets reference, right? Like,
well, sure.
Most people reading the comic, this is 2001. I don't think Wikipedia is a thing yet. Like, no one reading this is like, oh, right, this is a reference to Diabolique and Fantomex and the pulp literature of the early
Charlotte, I don't want to brag, but I consider myself to be a fairly intelligent person. I mean, I don't know. You've heard some of the stuff I said on this show.
Yes,
you've studied French. You've studied French.
But oh yes,
oui. So that's important.
That makes you cultured.
The thing about this is, it wasn't until y'all just started talking that I even thought that Fantomex could be a reference to. I was just like, I guess there's a ninja named Fantomex. Jot that down.
No, here's the thing. I only know this because of another comic book. Thank you, Alan Moore, for also being obsessed with Fantomex.
Oh, right, because Fantomex is in League.
In the Zweilichthelden, the Twilight heroes, who are the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen's foes during World War I. Fantomex is a member of that crew, that public domain crew. And so that's really the only reason I know any of this, is because of a different superhero comic.
They really need to do a sequel to the 2000s LXG movie.
Yes.
Same cast, same style, same visual effects. Direct sequel in the year of our Lord 2025.
Alas, Sean Connery, don't do the AI, Sean Connery. Please don't.
Oh no, please don't.
No, the estate, please don't give in.
But you know what? That's Daniel Craig as the character.
Do we really need Quatermain? I'm trying to speak this with...
Look, we're getting far afield here.
Yeah, sorry.
I just want to ask the question we ask all our guests, because I don't want to deprive Charlotte of that opportunity. Charlotte, how did you get into the X-Men, and when did you first encounter the Morrison run of the X-Men?
Great question. So I got into Marvel pretty late. Later than most people I know. I only got into Marvel with the MCU movies in 2014, which is like Guardians of the Galaxy, Winter Soldier, etc. And so the first X-Men... Oh, wait, no. Okay, so what got me into X-Men was Days of Future Past, because that's the year I started getting into superheroes.
Right, that was an MCU, but it was a Marvel movie with Fox that same year.
Which, at the time I did... I learned the difference when watching the movies, right?
Right.
But prior to that, so I read a lot of European comics growing up, not at all any American comics. Mm-hmm. But I did have, so my dad had a collection of where each volume is a snippet of a different classic series of comics, either from Europe, America, Japan, etc. And so we had a volume of like X-Men, and the cover of it was from the Morrison run. It's like the team standing up in a circle with a white background.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that cover and like, okay, I kind of know who Wolverine is, like just from like general, knowledge.
Right.
And I can know like a few other faces. Who's that weird like metal skull guy? And I only got the answer to that like 10 years later by reading more X-Men comics.
And you still don't have the answer to
quite know.
because no one does. We've done 2 episodes on that guy and I'm still not sure.
So but the comics inside the volume weren't at all the new X-Men one. I think it was like, one was a retelling of the origin, and there was like, I think a single like comic about like a lesbian relationship, which I think was with Karma from the New Mutants.
Oh.
Which, I think one of my first exposures to sapphic relationships in comics from a random X-Men comic my dad had, which is kind of fun.
That's kind of great. I love that.
Yeah. But the way I started actually like caring and reading a lot of X-Men comics was definitely like 2015, something like that. The Bendis run, I think. Was the one that wasn't going.
Becca's a huge, I don't want to say evangelist, but like talker about the Bendis run. So
yeah,
okay. I got my Bendis action figures right here.
Oh, look at that Ilyana with the big ass sword, the best.
I haven't read it since then, so I can't.
I haven't either.
I can't speak to it.
It's not good, but it's fun.
I think I liked the initial idea. I think I liked it because it introduced me both to where X-Men was at the time and to like the original version of the character, which I know people have thoughts about, but for someone discovering X-Men, I think it was like a good introduction to it. And also it introduced me to the sliding timescales, because I was like, okay, so current day, those guys are in 2015. When they were teenagers 15 years ago, they dressed like it was the 60s in flashbacks. Mm-hmm. What the hell? Why is that? It also introduced me to that concept.
There's a great point where Scott Summers is in that run. The time displaced Scott is unaware that bottled water exists.
Yeah.
Which is a really funny throwaway joke if you think that he's from...
Yeah.
He's like, wait, why is the water in bottles?
Yeah, we used to just drink from a trough back in 1963.
But you sure didn't. In 2001, we had
water
bottles.
Had water bottles, yeah.
It was crazy to see the channel tunnel in these comics, because like that's a thing that's fairly recent when these comics are coming out, right? And now it's like, yeah, obviously there's a tunnel between Britain and France.
Yeah, but it was a sexy location to have something happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's like characters, if you try to make sense of the timelines, like, oh, this version of the character has always known it, even though they were created at a time where it's like, it was like kind of a crazy concept.
I love the sliding time scale. I used to hate it.
Yeah.
And the more I've grown up,
it's just fun.
It's fun, but also it's this sort of, Al Ewing did a great little run on Ultimates that tried to not exactly rationalize it, but sort of have this one page where I think it was Eternity? Like one of the cosmic characters is just describing. Are you raising your hand, Becca, or no? Do you restrict?
Yeah, just to mark my place for when you're done.
Oh, okay. Well, I like the sliding time scale because it emotionally feels true. Like life does not feel like it happens at a consistent pace. And there are things that feel like fixed points in your life as opposed to other things that are more ambiguous. Yes, Becca, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, when Hoxpox came out, and I need to find my notes, but I talk about this as if it was complex math. It's not. But using Hickman's many timelines and the actual timeline of the Marvel Universe, I think I figured out that 1 year... 8 years of real time represent 1 year of comic time based on and you can apply that formula and it makes some degree of sense.
That actually works for some characters. There are certain characters.
Yes, and there's discussion of that on my sheet where I apply it to Human Torch and Kitty Pryde.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
No. It actually works with Kitty Pryde.
Oh, does it?
If that's true, then she would be in her early 20s right now.
All right.
Which I think is what she's typically portrayed as. And the Human Torch would be like in his mid-20s.
We talk about Kitty Pryde way too much for this podcast about a run that does not have Kitty Pryde, but we love Kitty Pryde. So
no. This is a genderqueer X-Men podcast. Of course, we're going to be talking about Kitty Pryde. Like, what? Yeah, obviously.
Most of the guests have been women who grew up reading the X-Men and like relating with Kitty Pryde, or whoever the Kitty Pryde of their era was.
Relating with most things about Kitty Pryde, maybe not everything she said in some German trends, but
yes, and right.
Anyway, I do just want to say I am well aware that the math of my comic book timeline was a silly project, and there are so many. I'm sure audiences, if you are going to send me something that disproves my timeline, just know I already know and I already get it. You don't send me a picture of a cat. You'll be doing both of us a favor instead of correcting me on how old Kitty Pryde is.
The great thing about recording so many episodes in advance is we don't have to give a shit about what our listeners think. Like, we just are doing what we like, and eventually we'll drop these, and if they hate them, oh well. Sorry.
No, it's Schrodinger's episode. Like, as long as you don't release them, you don't know what if they're good or not. So you just need to keep going.
Exactly. So, okay, did we get through when you encountered the Morrison run, or were we just talking about X?
So sorry.
Don't apologize at all. I love the tangents. Just keep going.
I actually got introduced to the Morrison run, not even by reading it, but having information about it. By reading Huck's Box and the Hickman run, because I was following. So my co-host from My Marvels here, Dave, did a YouTube series called Kraken Krakoa, where every week he would do like recaps of this week's X-Men comics and like how they are informed by previous X-Men comics, including the Morrison run, which Hickman is taking a lot of inspiration
very
from.
much interested in. Yes.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about the run without having even read it through Dave and Kraken Krakoa. And then I read New X-Men for the first time, like, what is time even? Like a year and a half ago when we covered it for My Marvelous Year. But that was the first time I read it. I never read it before then. Maybe I'd read a few issues here and there, but like not the actual run.
You say a year and a half. This sounds like a trivial question, but maybe it's not. Did you read it before or after October 7th? I'm curious, because it begins with a genocide, and that's a totally different context.
Oh boy,
pre and post. I was just curious.
I truly have no idea. I think probably before.
Yeah, because I can't imagine that like reading it after you wouldn't remember that. But I was just curious. Yeah. No,
I think before, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
It's always interesting to me when people came to this story, because I'm one of the very few people who has ever appeared on this podcast who actually read these issues as they came out, and I love hearing the different contexts. And so, from whatever context in your life you were in, what did you make of this sort of world-changing and then often retconned run? Like where you were in your life and in your Marvel life, what did you make of the Morrison run?
Well, the context of where I was in my Marvel life was getting very tired of 90s X-Men comics. So what we do with My Marvels here is we go through the
aren't we all?
Yeah, what we do with My Marvels here is we go through the best and most important comics of each year, and most important doesn't necessarily mean good, but like stories that matter, characters that get introduced.
Absolutely.
And so we spent like maybe 3 years of recording time in the 90s, and I was getting exhausted by X-Men comics. And I like X-Men, but like the 90s were dire time. Hot take, I know.
And Morrison would be the first to agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, like that first page, right? Like Cyclops.
Wolverine, you can probably stop doing that.
Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, it was like just a wave of so refreshing. Like, oh my god, that person has ideas for those characters, and it's not just talking in a room and not saying anything that matters, and then let's fight.
Yes.
It's just so, like, Cassandra Nova is such a great character to set the tone for the run, I think.
How so? What works about
I think she's like perfectly, like, she's the perfect balance of like Morrison weird, but also like making sense in the world.
Yes.
And a character that, like, you see her after 5 issues and it's like, okay, she's like, there's like Magneto, Apocalypse, Sinister, like not far beyond below that is Cassandra Nova. And and the art of, I'm gonna blank on his name.
Frank Quitely or
Frank
Igor
Quitely,
Corday.
like,
yeah, Frank Quitely, yeah.
I mean, like, incredible art, right? Like, that's just and feels much more like modern and breathes. Like, there's a lot of room for the art to breathe, and like just starting with that full panel page of the Cyclops and Wolverine fighting the Sentinel, like that's perfect. I think it sets the tone so well. I don't like all arcs of the run equally, but definitely by the end.
Lord, no, yeah, but yeah.
By the end, I like, it's definitely I don't love like ranking necessarily, but it's like top tier with Clement and early Krakoa, right? Of just the excitement of something new and clever and fresh starting. I think is just perfect.
Isn't it so funny how rarely it's like there are these franchises that mean so much to people, and X-Men is one of them, where like when you're really pinned down and asked, okay, what are the introductory texts for this? What are the canonical texts for this? You realize it's a much smaller number than you thought.
Oh yeah.
Like you've read so much, but like, are you really going to put Executioner's Song in like the essential texts? I like Executioner's Song for some reason because I like Strife because I have a weird fixation on Cable. But like, you're right. The 90s X-Men had gotten stale and this was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I mean, at some point when it's franchises that have been coming out every week almost for the past 60 years, like, you gotta have like, best of, and you go from one best of to the other to get to present day. Like, you can't read everything. Like, this isn't One Piece, and even One Piece like a tall order, but like, One Piece is doable. All of X-Men, that's crazy. It's
impossible because of all the spin-offs. Like, if you just read like, people say, oh, just read the Claremont run, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You're really going to tell someone to read something that is about 12 times the length of War and Peace once you include like Excalibur and the New Mutants? Like, give me a break here.
Yeah, so to me, it's like, you go it's like early Lee Kirby, then you jump to beginning of the Claremont run, and even then you do like a best of Claremont. You do, Days of Future Past, Dark Phoenix,
right,
and like introductions of periods. And then you skip, honestly, I mean, I guess you do Clement Lee, the 91 X-Men, all the first 3 issues, and then I think you can jump straight.
I guess for canonical,
it's important,
canonical purposes, it's important. Yeah. You're right.
But then you jump like Age of Apocalypse, and then straight up to New X-Men, right?
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I guess Onslaught is sort of important, but only because it's referenced.
No,
I'm not immortal, right? I care about the years I have on this earth. I'm not going to read Onslaught.
I'm not going to tell anyone.
I've already read it. I have read it for my job. I'm not reading it a second time.
Josie, I have never read a comic with Onslaught in it. And you know what? You know what? Not only do I manage, I know a lot about the X-Men. I'm successful in my life, and I know about the X-Men. Skip anything with Onslaught.
I actually, my childhood wasted time reading every single fucking issue of the Onslaught crossover. And yes, I do include Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider, was worth it for one line in the Morrison run, which isn't in these issues, unfortunately. But when Jean's doing psychic recovery on Charles, he's having this memory of defeating the monster Onslaught, and it felt like this nice little memory because I was like, oh, I remember when you defeated the demon Onslaught. Like, That was nice. But this is what comics is. You get you spend an ungodly amount of money and time consuming some bullshit. And then is it worth it when you have the fan service moment? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
Can we start talking about these issues?
And not just our issues? Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, because I was like, boy, if we the moment we started talking about executioners.
Yeah, I know. We got far afield.
That's the point. Talking about X-Men comics, you've gone too far.
I was like, Squad, I don't want to be Mr. Killjoy of 1962.
No.
That's a Fantastic Four reference for you guys.
Wow, good job.
100%.
But yes, I agree. Let's get into this.
The Thing absolutely calls Reed Richards Mr. Killjoy of 1962.
Wait, I haven't started talking about the Summers family dynamics yet. I'm not.
No, Charlotte, they're not even in this. So let's talk a little bit about this run, because this arc, because one of the really fun things is, I guess this isn't the first new character Morrison introduces. Obviously Cassandra Nova, and also plenty of the kind of
Zorn, sort of, but
Zorn, sort of, the kids at school. But Fantomex really feels like Morrison making a bid for a character who could be a main character and a main team member in a way that none of the other characters do. And I remembered having a lot of problems with Fantomex.
What were your problems with Fantomex?
Well, I remembered... Josie, that's it.
Oh, sorry. Jesus. Okay, fine. I'll shut up for a second. I'm kidding.
No, it's okay. This is our schism moment. I'll keep the school. You can go live in an abandoned military facility in Canada.
Totally fine by me. Keep going.
Anyway, I remember one of the things that troubled me about Fantomex is the same thing that still does, which is I think his ability to read body language is creepy in a way that goes beyond what was intended. But I love how nonsense he is, because you get into this whole stuff with Eva, which we'll get to in a second. But also it's really fun because... I mean, spoilers, obviously, but everything Fantomex says is a lie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so much fun when you realize that you're like, wow, absolutely nothing that I read in the past 3 issues happened the way that the characters experienced it. Is such a great way to get us to believe that Fantomex is a con man and a master of deception and sleight of hand and all of these things, that there really is no Fantomex.
Right. Fantomex is a... Look, Fantomex is a cluster of cells that decided it wanted to be French, which I love.
Which, wrong choice, but I respect it.
And decided that he wanted to be French Han Solo.
Yeah,
basically.
French Han Solo... Mixed, yeah.
And I was going to say, one thing that I do love is the fact that it's so much about I guess these cells wanted to be French Han Solo explains so much why his name and costume are direct references to French literary characters. Right. Because it absolutely is. I mean, Fantomex is a self-made man. And usually I only say that to people who, take weekly testosterone injections. But
Fantomex chose to be a man.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And not every cluster chose to be a man, as we learn later. You go ahead.
I don't know if this is going to mean anything to anyone. Have you watched or read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
I'm familiar with it, but I've not read it or watched it, no.
I just realized there's a character in the Stone Ocean arc that has basically the same the origins as Fantomex, which is they are a cluster of cells of hive mind cells, which the main character befriends and becomes just one of the girls of the team.
Why not?
But we don't know that he's a cluster of cells at this point.
Yeah, at this point, we just know that there's much more to him than meets the eye by the end.
We at least know that he kind of spawned into being through the Weapon X the Weapon Plus program. It feels like he wasn't really a person before that, which... Right. I will say, I think I kind of like that with the whole Fantomas diabolic thing, because I think as a kid watching those movies, it feels like the character of Fantomas, he's not a guy, like that guy didn't have a childhood, right? Like he just became.
He's more like the Joker in that, yeah, he's just there.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that vibe of a guy that is so unreal that that guy didn't have a childhood. He just like,
right.
You know, you don't grow up and become Arsène Lupin. Arsène Lupin just appears and becomes. And I think that works quite well for Fantomex's deal. I think if he had like a sad childhood or whatever, I think it would undermine the character. In the same way that I love that we never see his face underneath the mask. I love that the mask is his face. That's the identity he's created. And I think same thing, it would make him feel lesser if we saw his face. He would just look like I don't need to know that he looks like Frank Castle under there.
We eventually do in not to get it far afield, but who cares? Like none of that counts for me.
It takes a long time too. For what I recall in the run I'm always talking about for no adequately explained reason, Uncanny X-Force.
It's a very good run. I think it's fair to talk about it often.
Is it good?
I enjoyed it.
We'll talk about this later, Charlotte. But you don't see any of the three Fantomex's faces, even like during sex scenes. You don't see the Fantomex's faces. I'm pretty sure they keep their masks on.
Yeah, I just am thinking of the hilarious big new plot, like status quo that was established right before Hoxpox and immediately abandoned as soon as Hoxpox #1 came out.
Oh, right.
Which was that Fantomex and Professor X combined and became a being known as X. Just X, the letter X. Perfect for SEO. Search engine optimization on X was going to be great. Let me tell you. And anyway, so they ended up doing Hoxpox instead. And thank God, because then Twitter would have been a real problem if they'd kept the name just X. But anyway, back to this comic. What I'm curious about is how much does it feel like Paris? How much does it feel like Gay Paris in the art and in the vibe?
I think, okay, the opening scene of the arc, I think, is an actual square in Paris, which I've been to often.
Wow.
It's pretty accurate. And I also remember, I need to put it back up, but I think, so we see people kind of rioting,
yeah, they're protesting against mutants.
And they have what's the word? Signs, right? And I think often when you see French in Marvel Comics, it's pretty broken French. I think the French on the signs, from what I remember when reading it, it's pretty accurate. It's it's a little bit awkward, but better than most French in Marvel Comics.
I will say there's one. I'm looking at it right now. I don't speak enough French to say whether it's colloquially right, but I do know enough history to say that one of them says égalité, fraternité, liberté, which I believe is the wrong order.
Yes, it is the wrong order, but it's the right words.
But it's the right words, yeah. So anyway, visually it looks,
yes,
remake.
And the thing the thing that told me that Morrison has been to France is that they mentioned the city of Beauvais, which at least 2 or 3 times. They mentioned that flying over it, cannonball threw up all over Beauvais.
Right.
It's that city. I know it's not a big city, right? It's for France, it's the main city of its department, of its small region. But it's not Paris or Marseille or whatever.
Right.
It was seeing that name's okay, they've done their work, and they've done their work well enough that they know that the only thing they can say about it is that Cannonball threw up over it.
And that passes the smell test, so it works.
Yeah, perfect. No, I think, it's not. You know what? I will say, I think I would even like it to be a little bit more cliche, have a little bit more Batroc DNA in it, because I think...
Nice.
I think the main thing I'm missing a little bit with Fantomex is the fun he's having with it. I think I would like him to have fun. The gentleman thief is kind of the trope we're going for with Fantomex, and I think that's a character that kind of needs to be a dandy and have fun and go to parties. And I think that's an aspect. I think having that would make me like, yeah, okay, I get why he chose that identity of like the French gentleman thief.
The
Like that's the
Bonvillan.
fun.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's the
exactly.
fun that goes with it. Is that you can have the Tony Stark crazy,
right.
life,
You can
playboy.
you can have just all the stereotypes.
Which
That's very
they do kind of
interesting.
with the lair of like. Wait, also the thing they got really accurately with
The French country
someone.
house in the
Oh
UFO.
no! With someone trying to be a French white person is the colonial aesthetic in the in the house, and the
Yes.
like with cultural appropriation colonial artifacts in the living room. Like that's very French. I know a lot of French people who have that.
Love it.
Sadly accurate.
Charlotte, I think the problem with what you're saying is just like we get introduced to Fantomex like in media res, which obviously is part of
That's
the
part of the
con.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Fantomex is so focused on stopping Weapon 12 and presumably also covering up the evidence that he is Weapon 13.
Right.
But we don't get to see Fantomex. We see the aftermath of his adventures.
Yes.
We see his money. We see his palatial estate that may also not exist.
Right.
It's unclear. But we see those trappings of Fantomex, and we can assume that he had a gentlemanly adventure.
Yeah.
There just isn't a place for it in these 3 issues. And it's the kind of thing, again, when I said like it feels like Fantomex is a seed of a character who could have become a real main character. Like you want to know about Fantomex's adventures,
Yeah.
but it isn't. We don't have space for it because Weapon 12 is such a threat to him that like he can't go to a party,
right?
Because Weapon 12 is there.
Yes, I mean I see that plot wise, but I also think like I'm sold on Weapon 12 being a threat, but I think he's not a cool enough threat for me to again to have that be like, okay, no, we're focused on that thing, and it's okay that I think Fantomex is much cooler than like his deal is much cooler than whatever's going on with the Huntsman. I think that's like he's a faceless threat just running through the channel tunnel. I'm much less interested about that than like the crazy Frenchman with his nervous system being his ship, right? Like I want to know his deal.
Right. Well,
also it's important to realize like he hasn't had any adventures because Fantomex. This is like Fantomex's first couple days on the Earth, or days.
Sure, yeah.
Because they
he just emerged.
The train just crashed, which is why all of that other stuff is illusory. Like he's thought of these adventures in his time in the world, but he hasn't had these adventures, which is why Charles is like. Was it Charles or Jean? But is like, the reason we haven't heard of Fantomex the Shadow Thief is because there is no Fantomex the Shadow Thief.
Right.
Like, for the twist to work, he can't have done any of these things. These are all things that he imagined himself doing while he was in the world being injected with liquid time.
Right.
A thing that happens.
Like you do.
Charlotte is right. His nervous system is a spaceship. And this is revealed later that it's his nervous system. He doesn't say it here that it's his nervous system.
Spoilers.
But no, it's okay. I don't even remember if that's revealed in the Grant. No, I think that shows up later in Grant Morrison. I don't remember though.
All we know is that he threw her up, I guess, like, that's the mutation.
Yep.
So his mutation seems to be that his nervous system is a spaceship.
Or something that he puts in the shape of a spaceship, at least. He has an external nervous system that like can move around.
And also he can read body language. Is that part of his mutant ability?
Well, this is the trouble always with the Weapon Plus victims.
Yeah.
Is like, is it a mutant power or was it something they did with an experiment? I don't know.
But, one thing I will always remember about Fantomex and Eva, so around this time, I decided that because I didn't have enough stupid collections. And Josie and Charlotte can see all of my Pokemon plushes behind me. Because I didn't have enough stupid collections, in 2015 I decided that I was going to get into hero clicks.
Oh my.
So I still have all my hero clicks in the attic. I'm glancing up at the attic right now. But in order for the Fantomex piece to work, you have to also get the Eva piece. And you have to control both at once, and Fantomex can only take damage if you're attacking the Eva piece.
Wow.
It's so wonderfully complicated, and I absolutely bought the Uncanny X-Force box. There was a special box with the cast of the Uncanny X-Force.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, so I do have a puck up there. But yeah, I don't know. I love that nonsense so much.
Can I just say that one of my favorite Fantomex moments does not come in this series, in this run. It was much memed, but it was written by Matt Fraction in a Dark Reign crossover of all things. And it's Fantomex and Marvel Boy. Novar, another Grant Morrison creation.
Love him.
Love Novar. Novar, my little murder twink. Or twunk.
Nova is my favorite Grant Morrison Marvel creation, if only because I'm such a big Young Avengers gal.
Oh, yes. Young Avengers is delightful.
Charlotte,
yes.
I have agreed with everything you've said except that you should read Onslaught. I've agreed with everything
I haven't
else.
said you should read Onslaught. I very specifically said don't waste your time reading Onslaught.
No, wait. Let me tell you the moment. The moment is very funny. It's basically the two people who are left to destroy Weapon 16, which is what we're up to then, which is a virus that makes... It's a living religion, a virus that attacks the faith reserves. You have to believe in some sort of God for it to work. And Fantomex says,
"What?
Okay, that leaves me out. I have nanites in my brain to moderate my neocortex, rendering me physically incapable of believing in anything greater than myself. You," and then Novar says, "We have a mathematical equation that proves the non-existence of any deities. We learn it when we're children." And then Fantomex says, "Cool. I always knew atheists would save the world someday."
Oh God, it's like listening to Redditors.
It's so funny. I know.
It's awful.
It's both awful and hilarious.
It's perfect, yeah.
And it's a perfect parody of French anti-religionism, which I have my own opinions about. But anyway, so back to these issues. I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to turn our attention slightly away from Fantomex briefly and talk a little bit about Jean, because I remember reading these issues and getting to the part where it's the therapy session with Charles. And I can tell you exactly where I was. I was sitting in my dad's Toyota Land Cruiser, 1989 Toyota Land Cruiser. We were parked in Chicago while my sister was having a drum lesson, and I was reading comics in the car. And I got to the page where it's a full page panel of Jean with the Phoenix Force. And by that, I mean the Phoenix Force with Jean, because the dialogue bubble says, "Jean is just the house where I live in, Charles." Boy, that blew my frickin' mind when I was a teenager. I don't know if that blows anybody's minds now, but when I was a kid, I found that moment very powerful. Did that have any effect on anybody, or was that just me?
It's written well.
Yeah.
It didn't surprise me or anything, but I was like, that's a great turn of phrase.
Yeah. I guess you know how it turns out, yeah.
The page looks really, really cool. I just think at this point I've been through enough I'm kind of tired of the Jean Phoenix relationship. That's not my favorite part of Marvel. I mean, I get sometimes it is, but God, we've been so many iterations of the Phoenix with Jean or different other characters in Marvel that I'm I don't really care about the inner workings of the Phoenix and Host. But I will say, dissociated from all that, it is a very cool moment. I've read this scene twice for this recording, and both times, and maybe I'm absolutely alone, but there's a sequence of panels of, so Jean has all the kitchen utensils.
Yeah, the silverware.
Silverware floating around her, and Charles puts his finger on one of them and slightly touches it, and is like, "Can you feel that?" And every time I read them, Okay, this is weirdly sexual, right? This is sexual.
It's very sexual.
It's very sexual, right?
And I actually am okay with that because I hate Charles Xavier for a lot of reasons. And one of them is you read enough X-Men comics, you pick up on the weird vibes. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Which I will be, well, like, yes, it is a thing that happens sometimes. I don't love it. I don't like. I'm fine if we don't.
I'm fine if it's not there, but
right?
like it's been there enough that I kind of like Morrison making you feel uncomfortable and reminding you that this is an uncomfortable relationship and always has been.
I mean, that's how it starts, right? Like in the Lee Kirby thing, Professor Xavier is like, I have a crush on Jean Grey.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's one of the many like Stanley throwaway thing of like, well, here's an idea that maybe I'll pick up later, or maybe I won't. And probably no. Someone pick that back up again. I don't remember who. Is it Brubaker?
In Onslaught. No? In Onslaught.
Oh, of course.
In the prelude to Onslaught, Charles Xavier is having a psychic conversation, I believe, with the psychic remnant of Magneto that still lives in his mind after Fatal Attractions. And the psychic remnant is saying to him, "Do you think anyone actually understands what you are, Charles?" And I'll never forget this line because it was so creeptastic. Charles thinks and says to the voice, "I'd like to think Jean knew and understood." And I'm like,
who the hell, who wrote that?
My guess is either Fabian Nicieza or Scott Lobdell, because they were writing most of that stuff, but don't quote me on that.
Sure it's not John Byrne?
It was not John Byrne at that point. This was post-Byrne. But, you know, this is something, so it's lightly gestured at here, and I think it makes you deliberately uncomfortable because Morrison really never wants you to be uncomfortable, never wants you to be comfortable with Charles Xavier.
Yes, that is fair.
And any X-Men writer worth their salt knows that you should never be comfortable with Charles Xavier.
And I think the artists know that, because I think often that's not necessarily portrayed through the art, right? He does look usually like, you know, weirdly handsome, bald guy.
Oh, avuncular, nice. Yeah.
I think he often looks like kind of weird, which is like perfect for Xavier. There's like hints of Patrick Stewart in this arc specifically, but like a like mean and kind of awful version of Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, it's more like the Nazi Patrick Stewart from that one movie he did a few years ago.
Exactly. Especially in the scene where he's like telling Jean of like, oh, maybe it wasn't such a bad thing that Cassandra Nova like outed me on television, and like the look on his face and like the shadows, I'm like, oh yeah, like is she still in there? Like,
well, and the whole silent issue is him trying to strangle an infant in the womb. I mean, he's an infant too, so maybe it's just an infant on infant crime. But
you know, it's one of those things. It's one of those things that absolutely, and like, God, here I go again. But like, the thing that I loved about Hoxpox is Hoxpox seemed to be 100% positioning Charles as a creepy control freak, and that being the plot. And that it was like, we can't trust him, and everyone who listens to him is, you know, is not to be trusted, was how it felt. And it doesn't feel like a coincidence that Hickman, you know, I know Hickman didn't draw it, but like Hickman obviously conveyed to the artists that he like looks like who was previously Hickman's main villain, the Maker.
It's a lot like the Maker. The helmet and the little switch.
And the Maker also is like a hero who's pushed to become a creepy control freak.
To say the least.
And I mean, I know I'm oversimplifying.
I wasn't jerking your chain. I'm just saying.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay. We can end Schism.
No. I was just saying, to say the least, because I absolutely love the way Hickman writes the Maker, but that's a whole separate story.
The Maker is so good. The Maker is the best character. God, you know what? I know. Anyway, but the thing is, like, I definitely think Morrison gets that as well here, and that's the thing about sort of a character-focused story, and I know that's something that I'm always beating the drum of, but like, none of these characters are flawless, perfect people.
No.
And I think having, and we see so much of that even in this, like, Emma absolutely starting to cross a line, and and Cyclops obviously kind of going along with it and all these different things. Like, it feels like Morrison wants to explore the dark side of these characters, and that really pays off for Charles Xavier.
Yeah.
And
but I also like that it's not the dark side in like, not just the dark side in like, what is possessing them, or like what's devil, what devil is on their shoulders. It's really like, it's not even the dark version to me. It's like the human and the messiness. Because like,
yes,
Emma and Scott having an affair is not like, the dark side. It's like, oh no, they're messy adults.
And that,
right.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's not like the malice entity has possessed Emma.
No, and
it's not our rival skin has possessed Emma.
And it makes it more anxious because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very, as a young person, involved in the Scott-Jean relationship, and watching it get boring in the comics, and then watching Morrison sort of acknowledge that these characters that I felt like were my parents had grown stale in their marriage, while my parents had just gotten divorced, was like too much for my little brain. And that's why it works so well, is because it feels like a natural breakup. It does, and like it feels like two people drifting apart, and it feels like somebody who wants to have a breakthrough and doesn't know how to do ethical kink, like it's all very relatable in a way that X-Men love stories sometimes can be not, because they get overshadowed by cosmic stuff.
Now, I was going to say something that spoils what happens next, but I would say I like...
Go ahead.
No, but I won't go into specifics, but
this comic is 24 years old.
Yeah, we can spoiler whatever we want.
This comic can drink in the United States. I need to specify in the United States because,
Pretty soon it can rent a car. Yes. So
this comic is only 1 year younger than I am.
Wow!
Oh, no!
I didn't even think about that. No!
Yes, I was a baby when these came out.
I've been injected with liquid time.
I'm so sorry.
I'm aging right now.
No, the sliding time scale.
That's right. There we go. We're fine. We're all of us are about 27.
We're all 30. It's like, I was going to say earlier, I love how kids in Marvel age like Pokemons. Like they evolve from baby to toddler to teenager.
To adult.
There's no steps between that. Anyway, what I love about this with the Emma Scott relationship is, and I think I was scared that it was going to be like, Emma as like the evil temptress and she's going back to her dark side. And it's not that. It's like, that's the way it's shown in the arts for a long time. Because that's like the thing the characters and the world expects of Emma. But I think when things blow up, I like that the thing that happens with Emma is like, no, she's like a human person that has feelings, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something I like about how the run treats Emma and makes her a functioning member of the X-Men, which isn't a thing you couldn't really imagine beforehand.
Right, and afterwards, she's essential.
Like she's one of my favorite additions to the X-Men.
She's you can't think of her as not part of the X-cast now, basically.
Yeah, and I love her as like the teacher of the X-Men.
Yeah,
of the kids.
Charlotte, I mean, like, our audience is sick of me reminding people of this, but you haven't heard it yet. But in Grant Morrison's manifesto that they wrote before writing this, they specify that the X-Men are people first and superheroes second. And that is absolutely what you're getting at with all of the things that we've just been talking about. That, again, we're thinking about not like Charles Xavier's flaws because Charles Xavier, he's not possessed by Cassandra Nova at this point. No. It doesn't seem to be any evidence suggesting that, but he's still capable of pushing things way too far, just like Cassandra Nova. But yeah, I love this so much, and I love that even in this story, which feels so just straight, almost in a way straightforward, of like an adventure where it's like, we have to stop Weapon 12, the powerful super weapon. so we're gonna go into the tunnel and shoot guns and run around and yell and multiple man is there. Even in something like that, at the end of the day, it is so anchored in us seeing these characters and these characters sort of explore the darkness inside them. And if Fantomex is to be believed, then Jean has a thing for Fantomex.
Which I like in theory, but is
pelvis is if Jean's pelvis is to be believed, and I'll tell you what I don't like about this, thinking about Jean's pelvis that way.
Well,
yeah, I think I like the idea of it, of like Jeannie.
Call her Jeannie, we're friends.
Hey, Jeannie.
Hey, bub. I like her also being kind of not even messy. Like that's not messy. That's just her being attracted to someone.
Yeah,
I like that. Like that's human. That's adults.
Yeah.
What I don't like is how creepy it is for Fantomex to be talking about Jean's pelvis and Wonderbra. Like that's that.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I've known you for the past 3 hours. Let's take.
I guess his response would be, "I've existed for the last 3 hours." But
sure.
No good excuse though. But yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's not a lot of like sex ed in the world.
In the world, yeah, they just have whale brains with car engines attached to them. You can't learn much from that.
Also, he's French, so I guess that tracks with how French people are portrayed in media.
Hey, you said it, not me. I mean, it's really he's doing French face.
Pepe Le Pew.
He's doing French face. Like he's doing the.
He's quite literally doing French face, yeah.
And it's so funny that you say what you said, because now that I'm thinking about it, I do wish he was a little wackier. Like maybe Morrison decided they had to hold back because they didn't want to offend the French or something. But like, I want him to be wackier because he's specifically doing an act.
If Chris Claremont wrote Fantomex, there would be so many Z's in his dialogue.
Mon ami. Let me tell you, me and my best friend Brian, who was the one who got me into X-Men comics, we used to have a running gag that there should be a super team of all of Marvel's Scottish characters that would just be called you're Canadina.
Yes. I love Wolfsbane. She's awful to read. Dialogue.
It's impossible to read. It's like
you gotta read it out loud. I feel like I'm sounding things out like I'm a first grader. But like
I can't do these accents. Anyway,
I'm the richest duck in the world.
Wait, okay. While I have you doing accents, I have to have you say one line in a French accent, one Fantomex line.
Okay, let's hear it.
I decided I'm a mutant with no scruples, Professor. Can you say that in a very exaggerated French accent?
Wait, is it just I'm a mutant with no scruples?
Yeah, I'm a mutant with no scruples, Professor.
I'm a mutant with no scruples, Professor.
Perfect.
There we go. Great. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. That's a wrap. And that's a season finale of.
I just needed one Fantomex line done en français, and that one sounded very.
Are you sure you don't want me to talk more about Jean's pelvis?
Ugh. It sounds so much worse in a French accent.
Or her Wonderbra? Yes, it sounds like I'm Pepe Le Pew. It's quite awful.
Yeah. Which is part of the element here. So
yes.
Anyway,
some other things I just want to touch on.
Yeah.
So, I wish. If you're not reading X Factor, you truly don't care about these characters.
Poor X Factor.
You truly don't. Don't care about
does
these characters.
Darkstar even say one line in this comic?
Nope. If she do, maybe one. No, she says like one.
No, she talk about cannonballs.
It's so funny that even Fantomex.
She says like, "Guys, where are you?" and then dies.
Yeah, I think she talks about cannonball projectile vomiting all over Beauvais, so something like that.
That's about it. Yeah.
Fantomex even is like, Monet, don't fucking lie to me. You don't care about Darkstar, which is funny.
It's such a dig. It was
funny,
like so mean.
Yeah. It's funny, but it's also a thing that I can get annoyed at for writers to do. Like, oh, we don't care about this character. Well, like, make me care. Or don't have them in the comic.
Yes. Well, that's and there's something that like you keep talking about like cannonball projectile vomiting, but this does feel like, and this kind of happens whenever anyone tries to write X Factor.
Uh-oh.
This really feels like Morrison's best imitation of
Peter David.
And
right.
like you can't out Peter David.
No, all right, Peter
like,
David. Yeah, he had a special way.
I quite like Cannonball.
Yeah,
I quite like Cannonball. Like I'm a big New Mutants fan. Like I like Cannonball.
Favorite book?
Cannonball's delightful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Sam Guthrie forever.
Even Monet. Like I like Monet. I like Generation X well enough.
No, well that's what I found the depiction of X Factor. I'm not even the biggest fan of X Factor, but I just always find it irritating when a superhero writer takes a bunch of superheroes and goes, "Hey, aren't these people stupid? Shouldn't we kill them off? Shouldn't we?" And it's like, well, no. Like, I don't have time for you to go, "I hate my employer in this way." Like, this isn't an interesting way to say.
Oh, to me, it's not even like my employer. It's like, like other stories and that people have written. And like, I don't get that it's like, oh, you've ruined the Marvel IP. It's like, no, you're
shitting on Peter David. Like, I mean, I guess it's like, it's sort of homaging, but also the whole idea is like, they're just a bunch of drunk idiots. Like, they're just, a bunch of fuck ups.
And of course, we do have to see, and obviously thank goodness we don't see that much, but I felt so weird about the panel where you can kind of see Siren changing clothes.
It's
like,
right,
guys, come on.
Give me a break.
The art's wonderful though, and I love how Weapon 12 looks and is drawn, and his coral brain is really cool. The other thing I just wanted to mention real quick is, correct me if I'm wrong, and you two, I think, maybe have read more than I have, for instance, Onslaught. But is this the first time that we learn that A, Weapon X is Weapon 10, and B, that extrapolates to there are other numbers of weapon projects?
This was a big deal. Yes. Morris, now, I will say a caveat. And that is, Rob Liefeld once told me that it was his idea. I have to, as a disclaimer.
So like Deadpool?
With Deadpool, he said, I did a long interview with Rob Liefeld about Deadpool, and he said...
No, I just mean... Oh, go ahead. I'll interrupt you
please
later.
interrupt. He said, yeah, man, when I was inventing Deadpool, which, of course, he co-created Deadpool with Fabian Nicieza, so this is a whole thing, but when I was inventing Deadpool, I was like, Weapon X. The X means 10. Everybody knows that, right? So I was like, what if this guy was like Weapon 11? So maybe somebody else had thought about that, or there had been discussion of that, possibly. But this was the canonical introduction of the idea that the X was a 10. And I can tell you, me and my best friend, who I was reading this comic with all the time, we thought that was the coolest shit we'd ever seen. And then the only redeeming aspect of the Incredible Hulk 2008 was me and my best friend, as huge Grant Morrison fans, when there's that box that gets seen. It's not even a line, but you see a big crate that says Weapon Plus Program. And this was like, we were hunting for scraps back then. And I remember we were really stoked that Morrison's ideas were going to end up in the MCU. And then, of course, it was much more Mark Miller and Joss Whedon's ideas that ended up in the MCU, but that's a separate question. Weapon Plus was introduced here, and the idea of X being a 10 is such a cool little twist.
And then it lets creators do some silly stuff. I was telling Josie a little bit about Weapon 2 from the Howard the Duck Squirrel Girl crossover, where we learn that Weapon 2 is a squirrel nicknamed Wolvertini.
That's perfect.
It's good. It's good.
Other than that, are there any particular things about this arc we want to talk about?
I'm good. I really enjoyed it and was surprised in my reread at how much gets accomplished in a short period of time. Like, the status quo really does change dramatically, first with the introduction of Fantomex and then the Weapon Plus program. In this very short... And we start to see Scott make some real progress on the cheating. So it's a pretty thrill-packed run of issues.
I like how you phrase that like, and Scott's really leveling up his cheating game.
Well, that was what
good
it
job,
felt
Scott's
like.
getting so good at it. Scott's getting so good at it. Look at my little boy all grown up.
Oh man, that was how I felt. It was all so complicated. Charlotte, do you have any last thoughts?
I agree that like reading these, I kind of forgot it was like only 3 issues. Like a lot happens in them. I think this character in the hands of a lot of other writers could have been a big nothing, like some version of a boring Wolverine or Deadpool lookalike. That doesn't.
You mean Fantomex? Yes,
Yeah, Fantomex. And I think there's just enough like weirdness and twists about him, and I think especially the like misdirection, like nothing about him is what he says it is.
Right.
Works quite well, and I think makes him a character that when you see these shows, you're like, okay, that's kind of in the same way, like slightly less, but like kind of in the same way with Cassandra Nova. It's like, okay, that character is now like a big X-Men character.
Yep.
I had a list of like who I think are the biggest characters Morrison added to Marvel. And It's definitely Cassandra Nova and then Fantomex, right? Because after that, I have like Zorn, which
is complicated because who is Zorn, you know?
And then weirdly, I think the 4th place is Quentin Quire, who's like
that's probably
now
true.
kind of a big X-Men character, right?
I would say Quentin above Zorn, and I would say the Cuckoos above Zorn as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And my heart wants to say Marvel Boy above all else, but that's just
me
because.
too. But Novar doesn't get used nearly as often as he
let's
should.
Be honest.
I'm trying to think who. I think honestly, Morrison's biggest contribution to the Marvel canon is not a character, but it's the idea of Weapon Plus, which is introduced here.
Sure,
it became an architecture and a numbering system,
but what fruits does it bear that is better than Fantomex, right? Because like, is Old God a more interesting creation than Fantomex?
That's a good point. Okay, fair point. Yeah.
I just remembered. Nuke is Weapon 7, which implies he came before Wolverine, which is, I don't know how that works. Maybe, I guess.
Well, Wolverine only started getting experimented on in the 80s, maybe. Wolverine's been alive since God knows when, but who knows? It's the X-Men.
Definitely, if you look at creators that have added most to the X-Men universe, like obviously Lee Kirby, then Clements. Clement goes first.
I'd say Claremont goes first. Lee Kirby, the X-Men were an afterthought,
But then it's like, I would say Morrison before Hickman, because Hickman added like concepts, but not necessarily like characters. But it's too early to say, I think.
Hickman is smart enough. Hickman watched what happened to Morrison, and I think was smart enough to know, don't put your best creative energies and give away new characters to Marvel.
Yes,
you play around with the toys that they have, and you have fun with it, but you don't give them anything more than they already have. He didn't even he revolutionized the Maker, but it was Bendis who turned Reed evil. So he played the Hickman has learned to not bother, and Morrison, as of 2001, had not yet learned how to not bother. Still wanted to really,
which makes for good X-Men comics.
Makes good for X-Men comics, for good X-Men comics. But like, it must have felt truly awful to watch all that stuff get washed into the sand afterward. But such is comics. Should we close it there, or do we have other stuff?
Well, there's 2 quick things I wanted to say.
Oh, yes.
So real quick. Love when Charles is talking to Phoenix in the first issue. Phoenix, he gets a like psychic vision of like fire and the world exploding, and Phoenix refers to it not as a place, but, quote, "It's how it feels to be the last hope and to know you'll win against all the odds."
Yeah.
And that's how it feels to be trans in 2025.
That is how it does. No shit.
My other important thing that I want to ask is, Charlotte, we always ask people this important question related to Grant Morrison's manifesto. Logan, hot or not?
Oh, I mean,
think carefully.
No, okay. Yes, but no. Like, I can recognize he's hot. I'm just not attracted to him because I'm a lesbian.
Have you ever been attracted to a stone butch lesbian? I'm not accusing you. I'm just asking because I think.
Have you?
This podcast and thinking
No,
about
that is very fair.
This podcast and the Logan hot or not question has prompted me and my spouse to start considering, along with a friend of ours, writing a fanfic novel in which we posit lesbian or at least trans mask Wolverine. Because
yes, to me, like he's like trans mask bear, right?
Yes, I think it's not so much. He's very mask and butch. But I think it's in this way that is so in dialogue with his own internal femininity. And he has so much respect for women, which is like, unfortunately, a trait that is rare among comic book characters who are men. So like, it's so pronounced in him that personally, I find him to be an almost lesbian character.
So the answer I'm going to give is there's a fan art that I wish I could credit because I don't remember at all the name of the artist of Laura Kinney, the all new Wolverine, but like reimagined as like a big hairy butch woman, and I think like okay, that version of Laura Kinney I find even hotter. So
if you can find that fan art,
I'll try to.
If you can find it, we will put it in the show notes.
I remember something like that in like the Tumblr days when I was a Marvel Tumblr.
Yeah. If you can find it, we'll put it in the show notes and credit the artist because that sounds amazing. That is so my shit.
Yeah, it's like, that's a version of the character. That's okay. I found one that's not the version I saw back then, but that's a good Laura Kinney,
yes.
Right? Yeah,
that is so much more my Laura Kinney.
Yes, absolutely. So
like as much as yes. Wow, I love it. Our listeners couldn't see that, but we'll put something in the show notes.
Yes, I'll send it to you, and yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Charlotte, where can people find you? Where would you like them to find you?
So people can find me wherever they listen to podcasts. You can search for My Marvelous Year, which is the show I do with my co-host Dave and Zach, going through the best and most important stories of the Marvel Universe year by year. We're currently in 2012, I think. And we've just reached one of my favorite Marvel comics of all time, which is Kieran Gillen's Journey into Mystery.
A beautiful run.
So good, so
Very
good.
I wrote my master's thesis on the character of Loki, as written by Gillen and later Ewing. So I had a lot to say about
that.
Yes, I did. And so I was really glad to talk about that comic. We've reached 2012. So if people want to listen to, me talking about a comic I really love, let's head over there.
Wow.
And they can also check out the secondary podcast we do with Zach, also from MMY, which is called Extra Issues, where we talk about like any theme of comics we want, not and like very specifically not superheroes. Right now, the one we're currently recording is about Osamu Tezuka, the godfather of manga.
Yeah.
And we just got done doing series on Junie Ba and Alison Bechdel.
Yeah.
We've done like superhero subversions. We've done what else have we done? We've done Sandman before real world things happened.
Yeah.
But we're really, really proud of that podcast. So if people, want to hear us talk about comics, they don't necessarily have to, comics they can just read and like kind of historical fundamental comics. Yeah, head over there. We're really proud of the work we're doing there.
That's wonderful. And I am very eager to see where your podcast goes. I will completely confess, I'm not a listener of podcasts. We make this podcast. But like I need to get into your podcast because 2013 is when I started reading comics again. And simultaneously, because I was working at New York Magazine as a staffer, I was like, you need to let me write about comic books. And I started to actually be a force of small proportions, but that altered the course of some comics history. If you ever want me on the pod, I would love to talk about anything from 2013 through 2019 when I was a beat reporter. So just let me know.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thumbs up. Okay, Becca, where can people find you?
People can find me on Blue Sky at Tall Girl Petunia, all one word. And of course, you can find my writing about my other special interest, the Muppets, at toughpigs.com. and my podcast, which will definitely be out by the time this episode gets out, Prairie Dawn Companion, about the Muppets and feminism, which you can find on the podcast feed, Muppet Fan Podcasts with toughpigs.com. And Josie, where can people find you?
They can find me through a magical string of characters that they can type on their keyboard. And that is Josie, Josie .zone, zone, josie.zone. That is both my Blue Sky handle and the URL of my website, if you can believe it. And yes,
I can.
I'm so glad you believe me, because that trust is important in a podcast co-hosting gig. So, well, I think that does it for today. What are we discussing next week, Becca?
Oh, next week we're talking about issue 131, Some Angels Falling. That's the one shot. So we're just talking about one issue.
Very romantic. Lots of love story stuff there. Yes.
We've already recorded that episode, and it is a good
it is
one
a
and a
banger.
dense one.
It's for a one shot. We had a lot to say, so stick around for that one. And until then, remember, everyone, burn away what doesn't work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Au revoir.